Welcome to the Pearls of Wisdom podcast, where we mix business, law of attraction, spirituality, and well-being with great guests and phenomenal stories. You'll hear hints, tips, and up-to-the-minute information on digital communication from an expert in her field. Pearl has some wonderful individuals in her networks, and she will be interviewing them all at some point in the future. Enjoy your listening.
Thank you. Well, hello and welcome to another wonderful episode of the Pearls of Wisdom podcast. And today I am so excited. We have such a special guest on today's episode, someone that I've been inspired by for quite a long time now, and it's such a pleasure to find that we're now in the same network and that we've spoken on the same stage. Today I'm speaking to Dr. Sanjiv Chopra, Professor of Medicine at Harvard Medical School. Welcome, Sanjiv. It is such an honor to have you on the podcast.
Well, I'm delighted and really thrilled to be on your show.
Thank you so much. I mean, I think to the listeners, if you haven't already seen or heard Vicky Thomas and Hit Talks, make sure you go along and sort of find out and watch all those videos, because Sanjiv's messages in that, you are fantastic. I've watched from the very first one and your message is always on point. I always take loads of notes because I learn something new every time you share your message.
Well, Pearl, we're all learning every single day. And I say learning is a lifelong privilege. It's not a process. And Mahatma Gandhi once said, live as though you were going to die tomorrow. Learn as though you were going to live forever.
Oh, that gives me goosebumps. That is so special.
Yeah.
And it gets you so excited when you really believe that. And when you take that on board and fully absorb what that means, you can achieve anything. But it's understanding that and actually embracing it, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, I know I've shared some of the questions with you, Sanjiv, and you've got so much to offer. So I'm going to jump into these questions because I think, and I say to the listeners, get pen and paper ready because there'll be so many pearls of wisdom and golden nuggets shared tonight. So, Sanjiv, first of all, can you describe your career path to date, please?
Yeah, my career path, I decided to become a physician when I was 12 years of age. I was studying in St. Columba's High School, New Delhi, arguably the best all-boys school in India, Irish Christian brothers. And my parents were 150 miles away. We were staying with our uncle and aunt. They wanted my brother Deepak and I to finish our schooling at this school. And on a very hot, sultry weekend, I play a cricket match. And then Sunday evening around 6 o'clock, I'm a little tired. And before dinner, I'm reading something and I feel sleepy. I'm not feeling that great. I take like a 40-minute nap and I wake up and I'm terrified. I open my eyes and I can't see. I'm blind. I nudge my brother, Deepak, I can't see. And he must have done visual threat and reckoned I wasn't faking it. And he actually started to cry. I have one brother and he's turned blind. My uncle takes me to the military hospital in Delhi where the doctors imagine me and don't have the foggiest idea of what's going on. They're even talking about hysterical blindness. I'm a happy kid. I'm a good athlete, a good student. Finally, they get a hold of my father. This is 1961, long distance call. He's in an army jeep. And very calmly, he says, he was a brilliant physician, cardiologist. And he said, tell me everything that's happened to Sanjiv in the last 2 months. Everything. Any accidents, injuries, medicines. Oh yeah, he had a laceration to his right thigh with a sharp object 6 days ago, taken to the casualty ward, got stitches. He said, did he get an antibiotic? They mentioned it. So, did he get a tetanus shot? And very proudly they said, yes, he was given a tetanus shot. And he asked one more question. What kind? Anti-tetanus serum, ATS, or anti-tetanus toxoid? So they looked at the records and they said anti-tetanus serum. And I have no idea how my father divined it, but he said, Sanjiv is having a rare idiosyncratic reaction to the anti-tetanus serum. He has severe bilateral optic neuritis. His optic nerves are blown, they're ready to burst. Start an intravenous and give him massive doses of corticosteroids. And that was done, and about 9 hours later, my vision returned. And the next day I said, you know what? I want to be a healer like my father. Now, I've told this story, Pearl, to professors of ophthalmology at Harvard Medical School, UCLA, Stanford, Johns Hopkins, and they go, oh my God, probably wasn't even a footnote in the ophthalmology textbooks of that time. Had your father not done it, you could have been visually impaired or blind for life. So that's when I decided I'm going to go into the career of medicine. And then I was lucky enough to join the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, meet my wife-to-be. We were classmates. We've been married for 51 years. I'm 71. I got married at 20. I was the youngest in my class. And every time I've been lucky, I get into an internship and a residency and a fellowship. And my professors and teachers, my mentors, have packed my parachute. They've been so kind to me. And I wrote a book on leadership, and then I mentioned many of them. And one of the things I say in the book and in the talk I give on leadership is that as leaders, you have to do two things. The P in the leadership mnemonic, which is leadership, is packing others' parachutes. And I say as a leader, you have to do two things. One, you have to pack others' parachutes. And two, you have to thank those who packed your parachute. And my plea to you, don't wait for the eulogy.
Yeah.
Do it now. Call them, write them, go visit them. And a lot of my colleagues, professors, famous at Stanford and UCLA, have done that. And it's been a very, very moving experience. So anyone listening, you are in a position where you are today because somebody packed your parachute. A parent, a sibling, a neighbor, a teacher, a friend, and thank them personally. Don't wait for the eulogy, and then pay it forward.
Oh, that is fantastic. That is so inspirational. And to realize that, how many times do we think, like as a parent, we always think, no, do look after the children first. And sometimes, like on the aeroplane, you're told, no, you look after yourself first, because if you don't, you're of no use to the children as well. And it's lead by example. As you've said, that's such a fantastic leadership.
Pearl, you mentioned leadership by example. Again, I harken back to Gandhi. He was sitting in his ashram, and this mother walks 12 miles in the dust and the heat with her 12-year-old son. She says, Gandhiji, look at my son. He's gained a lot of weight. He's eating a lot of sugar. He totally worships you. He adores you. He'll do anything. Would you please tell him not to eat sugar? So Gandhi looks up at the boy and the mother, and he says, come back in a week. So they go away. A week later, they trudge again 12 miles in the heat and the dust. And Gandhi says to the boy, son, don't eat sugar. It's not good for your health. And the boy says, Gandhiji, from this moment onwards, I have given up sugar. And he walks out of the room, and the mother stays behind, and she says, Gandhiji, can I ask you a question? He says, sure. We were here a week ago, and you could have said the same thing to my son. And Gandhi whispers into her ear, at that time, I had not given up sugar.
Oh, that is wonderful.
Isn't it? You have to lead by example. Do as I do, not do as I say.
And I think that's the biggest difference where you have a leader to a boss. A leader will always lead the way, will always show the right way, whereas a boss sometimes uses those in his department or people that he manages or they manage, they use that almost to do the work for them. And there's such a difference, whereas the leader will do the work as well and actually show people how it's done so they follow.
Absolutely. You know, I was at a meeting of senior people from different Harvard institutions, the business school, the Kennedy School of Government, the law school, the ed school. I was representing the medical school. And we all sat down one morning for breakfast talking about leadership. And one of the individuals, a very legendary individual, in fact, said, Sanjiv, it's not possible to define leadership. You know leadership when you see it, but you can't define it. And I said to him, I beg to differ. Let me offer you a definition. Leadership is the ability to articulate a vision and walk the path such that it inspires others to rise above the banality and strife of their common day existence and achieve a higher and common goal. And I said, I'll also give you a definition of a great leader. A great leader is one, like a great teacher, who makes himself or herself progressively redundant.
Yeah.
The followers take over and often can do a better job. So it's a fascinating, I've been a student of leadership for many, many, many years. And then I've given a talk and written a book. I recently, just 3 weeks ago, gave a talk on leadership to 32,000 people globally for Eli Lilly, the big pharmaceutical giant. Very well received, but a lot of it is stories and concepts that I've understood and I'm still learning every single day.
And I think if we all understand that we are still learning, we're always learning.
Yeah.
If we come to everything from a place of wanting to learn more knowledge, it makes everything so special, doesn't it? And you take that information in, and like you say, with leaders, there are leaders and there are followers, but it's actually seen. We almost have to choose which one are we? Are we a leader or are we a follower?
Right.
But we also pivot. We depends where we are in our life.
That's
because
so
we
true.
can always learn from someone else, can't we? And then we become the follower from someone else.
Jack Welch, legendary leader of General Electric, once said, it is a badge of honor to get good ideas from someone else.
Yeah.
Harry Truman once said, it's amazing what you can accomplish if you don't care who gets the credit.
Yes.
And this whole concept of servant leadership. Leaders are there to serve, not to be bosses and bosses around. They're there to serve.
Yeah.
And the good leaders understand that and make it very inclusive. Jack Welch created an ethos in his company that people would go with ideas. And one time this lady, one of his people working in GE, suggested an idea. They liked it. They spent 20 million, totally backfired. He promoted the lady because he wanted that ethos for people to feel comfortable coming up with good ideas.
Yes.
Right.
And that is wonderful. And I think that's where, when you have leaders that will mentor others, where they have, like you said, that place of service where you give back to others, that's how other leaders grow. And that's how you leave that fantastic ideology for others to follow.
Pearl, I think at this moment, perhaps one of the greatest leaders is Jacinda Ardern from New Zealand, the Prime Minister.
Yes.
She's an amazing leader. The way she's tackled COVID, now it's a small country, 4 million people, but the way she's addressed mental health challenges in young people, she said, we're not going to wait for them to become 18, 20, get into trouble. We're going to invest $2 billion and train teachers, psychologists, parents, social workers, and try and figure out if something's going wrong at an early age and intervene. The indigenous native people worship her. She's planning to go to a 4-day week. And there are studies now that people who work 4 days are actually more productive than if they work 5 days.
Yeah.
And there was a wonderful article, cover story on Forbes magazine several months ago. And it had the photograph of the leaders from Norway, Denmark, Iceland, Finland, Vietnam, New Zealand. And guess what? All women. Yes. All women. There's a wonderful book by a medical anthropologist from Yale, Helen Fisher, which I read about 20 years ago. And it's called The First Sex, The Natural Talents of Women and How They Are Changing the World. I think in general, women tend to be much more nurturing. They tend to be much more collaborative in general. And there are some countries, Norway is one of them, which have mandated a law that on all the boards, especially for the government agencies, at least 40% representation have to be women. When I do my medical courses, CME courses in Santa Fe, Singapore, Kuwait, Boston, all over the world, Argentina, I will make a concerted effort to have a significant percentage of the faculty as women. I will often start the very first lecture by an amazing professor of medicine, Harvard, Darine Tung, talks about genetics and breast cancer, brilliant talk. And I will often end the course, 7-day long course, with women or a woman moderator or panelist. And it's a message that, we need to send.
Yeah. That is, you saying that, it reminds me when I've worked with UK government quite a lot, and there's a particular group of companies that I think is called the 3% Club. And it's both female and male CEOs, but they come together and they mentor women to show them how they can actually reach that C-suite. And when you can see, when all those people come together and they give their time for free and they mentor these particular people. And when I first found out about that, I thought, this is phenomenal, because it's going to bring more women up to a higher level so that they can, their knowledge can be shared. But again, how many C-suite people do we see that don't always give back, that they feel nervous, that all those coming up behind are after their role? Whereas if, when we talked about that leadership piece, if they were to share and help, and as Vicky Thomas has said, where she turns around and you give the hand and you help someone up, you get so much further than if you're trying to push everyone down because you feel it's a competition.
Saint Francis of Assisi had some great sayings, and one of them was, "For it is in the giving that we receive."
Yes.
Right? And one of my favorite ones from him is, "Preach the gospel at all times. If necessary, use words."
I love that.
Isn't that great?
That. Yes.
Preach the gospel at all times. If necessary, use words.
Yes.
But it's again by example.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, this is absolutely wonderful. I know I did tell the listeners, you take notes and come back and listen to this time and time again, because people will pick up on something. Maybe if they're writing, they miss something, so they can come back and listen to something else. So you've probably covered some of this in the first question. So can you maybe go into slightly more detail? Can you name 3 things that made you choose your current career, and why? I mean, the reason that you've said that you were drawn to do your career.
I think that episode that I had where I was blind, I was terrified, and then my father figured it out. My father was brilliant, and my mother, so he had the mind and intellect, and my mother had the biggest heart in the world. And when we were in central India, in Jabalpur, so he was in the Army Medical Corps, he'd be posted every 3 years. And we packed up, went to 3 different schools every 3 years. The military allowed private practice. So he opened a clinic in a huge bungalow in the cantonment. And the word spread that he was the most amazing doctor. So people came from all over India. And they came in buses and rickshaws and bicycles, and they came in chauffeur-driven Mercedes cars. And my mother would watch, and she would say to the secretary, that family, just ask them where they came from and how much it cost them to transportation. And she would ask, and they had come from 100 miles in the bus and paid the bus fare. And my mother would say to her, don't charge them any fee, pay them the bus fare, and make some sandwiches and tea for them for the journey back. So 3 years later, our fathers posted, and I remember I was 9 years of age then. And I'm sitting in the train at the platform in the cantonment. There are about 1,000 people on the platform. Mm. And many of them are crying. Dr. Chopra, our savior, is leaving. What are we going to do now? And that was another time when I thought, I should become a physician like my father. Mm-hmm. Then it gelled with the blindness episode. And then reading books, so many books that I read were written by physicians. So always interested in reading and literature. And I think it was the culmination of those things.
Oh, this is absolutely wonderful. Everything you're saying is just inspiring me more and more. And I think to anyone that listens to this, is you can't get a more phenomenal way to choose a career and to have that leader and to have your father as that leadership figure. That is wonderful. It really is. It's so special.
Yeah, thank you.
I will move on to this next question. I mean, I think anyone listening to you will see you will have a fantastic answer to this. Sanjiv, what key values does your business offer you?
What key values?
Yes.
So I'm in the business of teaching, and teaching not only medicine, but leadership and happiness. And some years ago, maybe 12 years ago, a very dear friend of mine, Adrian Wilkins, who's half English and half American, and very, very spiritual. And we're having coffee, and he says to me, Sanjiv, you've written all these books, you won all these awards. I said, wait, Adrian, where is this conversation going? You know all this. He said to me, what is your purpose in life? And you know what, Pearl, I hadn't reflected on it. And so I come home, and my wife is in New York to be with the grandkids. So I sit on the deck, I look up at the clouds in the sky, and I write down my purpose. And I'll share it with you. It's also in the book I wrote with Gina Wild. And everything I now do has to be aligned to my purpose. If it's not, doesn't matter how much fame or fortune, it's a detour, it's a distraction. I'm not going to do it. And I beg off. And I even say to the person who had invited me, I'm sorry, I can't join your board, or I can't do this. It's not aligned to my purpose. And I hope you will understand and forgive me. And they all do that. So my purpose in life is to follow my dharma. Dharma is a Sanskrit word which distills vocation, moral compass, authenticity, truth. So my purpose in life is to follow my dharma, to teach medicine, leadership, and happiness, to do it grounded in humility, to celebrate with gratitude my family, my friends, my colleagues, my students, and my patients who inspire me in countless ways, and in some small measure, inspire everyone I meet on this amazing life journey. So it's a little long, but I wanted all those elements in there. And then I wrote a book. I started giving a talk, Dharma, Happiness, and Living with Purpose. And then out of that became a book, which I wrote with a good friend and colleague, family friend, Gina Wild. She was the Associate Dean of External Communications at Harvard Medical School. And actually, she and her son, Gareth, great guy, learned meditation from my wife, who's become a teacher of meditation. So we wrote a book together, and it's called The Two Most Important Days: How to Find Your Purpose, Live a Happier and Healthier Life. And when we wrote the book, there were like 25,000 books with the word happiness in the title. So I said, let's use something different. How about Two Most Important Days? And then when you open the book, there's the quote by Mark Twain, who once famously said, the two most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you find out why. How good is that, right? Each one of us has a singular purpose in life. And we can find our purpose by reflecting on it, or sometimes it comes when you witness something horrific. But the person who's witnessing it has the fortitude, the grit, the compassion, and love to say, unacceptable. I'm going to try and make a difference. So I want everyone to hear this story, which I've told a gazillion times, and I often choke when I'm telling it. I met this guy about 12 years ago. He's from the country Columbia. I met him at a leadership course at the Kellogg Institute School in Illinois. And he's from the country Columbia. His name is Jaime Aramillo. When he was 28 years, he's now about 68. He's standing at a street corner in Bogota, and across the street, there's a sewer. And in the sewer, there's an underground city, and these orphans live there with all the muck and dirt and filth. And a 7-year-old beautiful girl emerges. She's smiling at him, and he's saying to himself, I should help these kids. As they're having this interaction, a car comes around the corner, stops in the middle of the street, a window rolls down, somebody tosses a toy, the car recedes. It's a yellow school bus, Fisher-Price toy. This girl has never possessed a toy. She comes running to the middle of the street, picks up the toy. She's looking at Jaime Aromillo, beaming with joy. And as they're having this interaction, speeding truck comes around the corner and smashes her into oblivion. So he says, this is it. This is my calling in life. I'm going to help these kids. He has adopted, housed, schooled, and fed 52,000 children. So he's a national hero. His name is Papa Jaime. So I said, Papa, how do you pay for it? How many staff do you have? He said, Sanjiv, I have a bakery. The only thing we make is cookies. I've convinced restaurants in Medellin, Bogota to put a cookie jar next to the cash register. As people are leaving, they grab a cookie. There's a shoebox with a slit. They drop change, $1. I get 50% of my needs that way. I said, wonderful. What about the other 50%? He said, I'm a motivational speaker. I speak all over Latin America. I plow my honorarium into the foundation. I said, Papa, come on, that doesn't cut it. I know what motivational speakers get. He says, you're right, Sanjiv. Every time I need money, out of the blue, somebody helps me. Every time. He said, 3 weeks ago, I needed 41,000 US dollars to pay my bills. So I go to 3 banks, they turn me down. I said, Papa, we love the work you do. We've already given you loans at the lowest rate. We can't give you more money. So he's coming back to his office. There's a street woman, recognizes them, crosses the street, gives them a hug. Papa Jaime, he turns to her and he says, are you hungry? Come to the office. So she's sitting in the office, having coffee and cookies. He's on the phone, calling 3 other bankers, and she can tell that he's being turned down. So she looks at him, she says, Papa, how much money do you need? He says, Sanjiv, I told her, I need 41,000 US dollars. She smiles. She says, I give it to you. He said, I said to myself, she's cuckoo. She's a street woman. She opened her purse. She had $60,000. Her son had sent her the money to move into a house, go to a bank, deposit the money. She says, I've saved some other money. The weather's good. I can move later. You need it. Your children need it. No questions asked. Take it now. You can return it if you want, when you want. His kids, Pearl, he's been doing it for 40 years, have grown up to become computer scientists, professional athletes, the junior tennis champion from the country Colombia, flanked by Pete Sampras and Agassi. He showed me a photograph. Artists, nurses, accountants, lawyers, surgeons, 40 years. Many of them are giving back to the foundation. But he found his purpose in life 40-some years ago, witnessing the tragic death of that 7-year-old girl. So very often, the Buddha once said, every life has a measure of sorrow. Sometimes it is this that awakens us. When he watched that girl die 7, it just awakened. And if you meet him, Pearl, and you see his eyes, you can see the bliss. He's like one of the happiest people on this planet.
Oh, this is so fantastic. I know I've recently found what my purpose is. And when you know, like you say, when you know what your purpose is, you can just go forward and you can deliver. Because it took me so much soul searching. And mine is to give a voice to the unspoken, which is why I do the podcast, which is why I speak, because I shared that. But that example you have just shared, it just gives you so much faith that I do a lot of work with law of attraction, spirituality, and you ask the universe and you believe and it comes. And that is that's the biggest example you could give, because you have the faith that because you've asked. You don't ask how it's going to be there, you just fully believe that it's going to.
And the nature and the planets and the stars will conspire and deliver it. So I tell this story, and then every now and then Papa Jaime will write to me and he'll say, the physician couple heard you speak in Chicago and they came to the orphanage and I got to meet them and it was so good. And then when they were leaving, they wrote a check for $3,000. Thank you. So I just tell the story and I have no idea where it's going to go. But he's an amazing and such an inspirational person to me.
And this is where whatever we give out comes back to us, and you get to meet the right people because there's a message that needs to be shared or something that you need to collaborate together to move forward. And it's lovely to see those little ripples that start and they become waves, and just it's just massive. And it's so lovely to hear.
Yeah. Well, my brother has written 95 books and like 25 are New York Times bestseller. During the COVID, lockdown, I took advantage. And in that 1 year, believe it or not, I finished a short book. So I'd written half of it. And then I finished 3 other books. But one of the books my brother wrote is all about what you just said. Synchronicity and destiny. He calls it synchro destiny. That's what it is. But you have to be prepared, right? If you are prepared and you put out the intention out there to the universe, it will answer it. One of the most powerful things we can do is say affirmations. Now, many people say affirmations in the morning. They get up, look in the mirror, smile, say, today's going to be a great day. I'm going to achieve a lot of success. I'll be happy. I'll have a great meeting. I'll give a great talk, da, 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 da. It has value. But for the listeners, I'm going to share with you an affirmation. I'll repeat it. You can write it down. And you must say it at night as your head hits the pillow. There's neuroscience at Harvard to show how the brain works on this and figures it out while you're asleep. So the affirmation is, I expand in abundance, success, happiness, and love every day. I expand in abundance, success, happiness, and love every day. And inspire others to do the same. I expand in abundance, success, happiness, and love every day and inspire others to do the same. Now, the inspire others to do the same is not out of arrogance. It's your duty. It's your dharma.
Yeah.
Voltaire, the French philosopher, said, every man is guilty of all the good he did not do. So if you and I have a talent or a skill or something, we must share it.
Yes.
When I give my talks all over the world and I see people taking notes furiously, I say, you don't have to take notes. The organizer will give you access to all my slides and you can use them. You can modify them. You don't even have to give me attribution. I call it copy left.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
So, it's not copyright. Knowledge is in the domain of the seeker.
No. Exactly. Definitely. And it's understanding that. And like we say, you put out there and you just know with every ounce of your being that it's going to come back. And it is, and everyone says you don't give to receive, which you don't, but by giving, you receive that love, that help, and that's one of the best feelings possible.
It really is.
It is.
One of the best ways for us to be happy is to make others happy.
Yes.
In my book and in my talks, I talk about the 4 pillars of happiness. And the first one is having a cadre of good friends.
Yeah.
Of course, your family can be best friends, but your friends are your chosen family.
Yes.
Robert Louis Stevenson said, a friend is a gift you give to yourself.
Oh, I love that.
And Khalil Gibran said, friendship is a sweet responsibility, never an opportunity. There's a most amazing study that is still ongoing. It's gone on for 80 years at Harvard. It's called the Harvard Grant Study or the Harvard Study on Adult Happiness. So they recruited 700 21-year-olds, 250 went to Harvard, the rest were from very poor, dysfunctional families in Boston. Followed them every year. As of a year ago, 2 years ago, 19 were still alive in their 90s. Detailed questionnaires, physical examination, blood tests, EKG, functional MRI, home visits, and then a cohort of their children, 2,000, are now being followed in a study. Who was in that group? Well, what became of them? Doctors, lawyers, skid row alcoholic derelicts, some died of suicide. One became the president of America. John F. Kennedy was in that study. And the major conclusion of the study is that loneliness is toxic, and that your satisfaction with relationships with friends at age 50 is a better predictor of health, happiness, and longevity 3 decades later. Better than what? Your EKG, your blood pressure, your cholesterol. So I teach the medical students and young doctors, you have 15, 20 minutes for a patient visit. At the end, ask them what they do to celebrate with friends. And point them. Robert Waldinger, the current principal investigator of this study, is a professor of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School, has given a brilliant TED Talk. So I would urge people to watch this TED Talk. It's called What Makes a Good Life? Longer study on happiness. Robert Waldinger. So friends, second is ability to forgive. We hold bitterness or rancor in our heart, we can never be happy, right? To me, the most amazing example is Nelson Mandela, 27 years in prison. When he's released, Mr. Mandela, do you harbor resentment against your captors? He said, no, I have no bitterness, no resentment. Resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies.
Yeah.
So friends, forgiveness. The third is quote by Albert Schweitzer, physician, theologian, humanitarian, Nobel laureate. He once said, I don't know what your destiny will be, but one thing I'm certain of, the ones amongst you who will be truly happy are those who have sought and found how to serve. So I've distilled it into 3 F's, friends, forgiveness, for others. But the fourth one begins with G, and it's not God, and we all know it, it's gratitude. If the listeners do not have a gratitude journal, I urge you to start one. Okay? Buy a notebook, put your name, call it your gratitude journal. Let's say every Sunday evening as you're reflecting on what's in store for you the next week, look back and write down what you're grateful for. You'll be amazed how many things will come back to you.
Yes.
Your happiness quotient will go up. So friends, forgiveness for others, and gratitude. But happiness is more than the sum total of happy moments. And in order for us to have sustained happiness, we have to find our purpose and live it. And that will also come.
Yes. Oh, this is just wonderful. It's just everything you're saying, so many synchronicities. And that's one of my favorite words, which I got from Vicky as well. And everything you're saying, all my listeners are going to love this. And like I say, they will listen again and again, because there are so many golden nuggets and pearls of wisdom that you are sharing. Now, I'm going to ask this next question, but I'm not sure that anything does, but I always throw it in because it's something I use when I'm with my corporate clients. But Sanjiv, what keeps you awake at night? I expect very little.
I'll tell you something. I meditate twice a day. So I meditate in the morning, and then I have all the energy and creativity and ideas. And then I meditate usually at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the evening, and it's like the whole evening opens up. And then at night, when I hit my head on the pillow, I sort of reflect on the day and what I'm grateful for, and then I say the affirmation. Yeah. I say it 2 or 3 times, and then I fall asleep. There's an amazing person from India. He founded the company Infosys with his brother-in-law. His brother-in-law is Desh Deshpande, and he lives here in Massachusetts, and we are friends with them. Amazing individual. His brother-in-law in India is Narayana Murthy. And the two of them founded the company by pawning a piece of jewelry of Narayana Murthy's wife Sudha for $250. $250, start a company. The telephone operators wanted a bribe to put the telephone in the office. They said, we're not going to start a new company with a bribe. So after a year, the telephone people gave up, put the telephone. 30 years later, that company is worth $35 billion. And Narayana Murthy, very learned, he and his brother-in-law, Deshpande, support an organization called Akshay Patra. Akshay means sky, Patra means pot, and they feed school children. So these school kids are going to school in India hungry, no breakfast, no lunch. And it's amazing for something like $14, one can feed a child for the whole year. Whole year. They have these massive machines and GPS. Anyway, Narayana Murthy, in a commencement, once said, people with principles cannot be bullied or pushed around because they can draw clear lines in the sand. The softest pillow is a clear conscience. So I sleep well at night because I think I have a clear conscience.
Oh, that is wonderful. And it's like I say, I brought that question in because of the corporate thing. It's almost one of the set questions that you ask a CEO.
Yeah.
And I just knew, because your whole demeanor and everything you share, you can't do anything but sleep well, because you have so much that you've shared. You know your purpose, you're helping so many people, you're leading. And so you can finish that day and you can think, yes.
Yeah, and Pearl, I look forward to work. You know, people used to ask me, which is the favorite day of your week?
Yeah.
And they'd be stunned when I would answer. I would say, well, actually I have 2 times in the week. And they'd say, okay. And I'd say Friday evening. And they said, of course. And I'd say Monday morning.
Yes.
Monday morning? I said, yeah, I look forward to working, seeing my patients, or giving a talk, or teaching the interns and residents, medical students. I just love my work. It's, you know, your work can be 3 things. It can be a job, it can be a career. And for many of us early in our life, it has to be those 2.
Yeah.
But if you're lucky, it becomes a calling.
Yes.
No longer job, no longer career, it's a calling. You'd do it even if you didn't get paid a cent, you know, or a penny. And you are in your element. You are happy when you're doing it. You're in bliss. So that's how I feel.
Yes, and that is so wonderful. And it's such a lovely image and to share with everyone listening. And it's something I think we should all strive for, because you've given us all the tools just by what you've shared. If we can all follow that, we're all going to get to that stage where we can sleep well because we're doing everything that we want to. And like you say, I love what I do. People say that my passion comes through because I get so excited when I talk about things, because I love what I'm doing. And it's never a chore. It doesn't feel like, yes.
That's true.
Ideally, so you do it all the more and you don't count the hours because it's what you love doing. And it makes it so special.
Yeah, it's great fun.
And I've just seen the time. I can't believe how quickly this hour is going. So I'm going to jump through some of these questions because I would love to ask you to come back and be a regular.
I'd be happy to do it.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I know your schedule is so busy, but you've got so much. What I'm going to say, because I love books and I know you love books and you've written so many, so I'm just going to pick this question out. Sanjiv, can you name 3 titles of your favorite books and why you've chosen them? I know 3 isn't fair.
That's a very, very tough question. Actually, I gave a named lecture at Harvard, and I decided as people are leaving, they'll get a handout, and it would be a list of 24 or 30 books that have inspired me and changed the way I think. And now I have to find that on my memory stick somewhere. But 3 books, let's see. I think one of them would be by my brother Deepak. I think one of his best books is The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success.
Wow. 7
Spiritual Laws of Success. I read it every 6 months, a year, and I get more out of it.
Yeah.
And I say, I did incorporate that in my thinking, but I need to do better. Another book that I think is amazing is written by Miguel Ruiz, R-U-I-Z, and it's called The 4 Agreements. And it's based on ancient Toltec wisdom. Now, when I picked up the books some years ago, on the cover, foreword by Deepak Chopra. I can't get rid of my brother. Anywhere I go in the world. One time I'm running the American Gastroenterology Association postgraduate course, 8,000 people from many, many countries. I'm the course director with another colleague. I go early in the morning to Starbucks, get my coffee. I'm wearing my suit, my name badge, this beautiful young lady behind the counter. Are you related to Deepak? He's my brother. Oh, my mother loves him. I love him. We've read every book. The coffee's on me. I said, you don't have to. She said, no, I insist, sir. So I come out, I call Deepak. I said, Deepak, where are you? He said, I'm in Australia. I'm just finishing. This is years ago. I said, it took you 52 years, but you finally came through. I got a free coffee. So anyway, Deepak has endorsed this book called The Four Agreements by Miguel Ruiz. He was on Oprah twice. It's been translated into 50 languages, and it's very simple. It's the four agreements we make with ourselves. And the first one is always be impeccable with your word. Okay, based on ancient Toltec wisdom. Number two, don't be judgmental. We're all judgmental. I go to a cafeteria and I see somebody come and he is 350 pounds and he's eating a double cheeseburger with French fries. I'm making a judgment. But I don't know if he lost his wife or he got diagnosed with prostate cancer and this is comfort food. Who am I to make the judgment, right? Number three, don't make assumptions. And then the fourth one also blew me away. It said, always do your best. And I had reached this stage where I'm giving 100 talks a year and I'm getting standing ovations. And I would go 30 minutes ahead of time and go sit with the AV guy and go click, 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 click. Okay, I'm all set. Am I doing my best? Now, 2 weeks before every keynote talk I'm giving, I review my slides. How can I improve it? Can I tell a better story? Can I get a better anecdote? So it's a wonderful book, The Four Agreements. So 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, The Four Agreements. There's an amazing book by Paramahansa Yogananda called Autobiography of a Yogi. And if you read it, you'll say, wow, amazing. Miracles made up? What is going on? But it's an amazing book and you can open any chapter and read it. When Steve Jobs was dying of cancer, he had his family around him and he gave each one of them a gift. And it was Autobiography of a Yogi, the book. At his funeral, there were 1,000 people. They each got a gift. Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. On his Kindle, he had one book, Autobiography of a Yogi. So you can read stuff in there and you can incorporate the wisdom and the lessons, life lessons. So those 3 books come to mind.
Oh, they are fantastic. And I think everyone that's listening are going to make sure that they get into the habit of reading those books regularly so that they can learn from that.
Yeah, I would also encourage everyone, read
Yes.
all the time.
Yes.
Expand your mind. What I do now when I'm invited by friends and my wife and I go for dinner, we might take the traditional bottle of wine or flowers. I also take a book. Oh. If I've read a good book, I then go to Amazon or wherever, order 5 copies, and I give them the book. My own books, when I get 75 complimentary copies, and my friends say, hey, can I have an autographed copy? Say, I'm sorry, Joe, you can't. I give it to my Korean dry cleaner, my African-American shoe shine guy, the Pakistani gas station attendant, the waitress, the flight attendant on a flight, and they are so happy. They're not going to go and buy a $20, $30 book, but you give them a book and autograph it, they're in heaven. So read a lot. I have a saying, the person who does not read has no advantage over the person who cannot read.
Yeah.
You must read, yeah. Expand your horizons. Actually, if you learn something new, you exercise, drink coffee, and meditate. Those are the 4 currently known ways to mitigate the risk of developing Alzheimer's. So learning something new, it's not playing chess all the time or Sudoku or doing crossword puzzles. Yes, you have to get better at it. But learn ballroom dancing, learn a new language, learn, how to chip and putt, something new. That's what we need to do, learn.
Oh, this is wonderful. And I must admit, this was my selfish pleasure. That one question out of everything I ask people, because I have a love of books. I did my degree with English literature and language, and the spoken word, the written word, and that's that quote, knowledge is power. I have always loved that, because once you have that knowledge, you can always add more, you can grow from it, you can have intellectual conversation with everyone at any level. Once you've read something, you've got something in common, people can connect with it. And the amount of books I've got, I've spent thousands and thousands on books, and then I have them in different things. I'll have a hard copy, then I'll have it on the Kindle, because I never know where I'm going to be and what I'm going to be doing. Or I also have it on Audible as well, because depending on when I'm multitasking, if I'm doing my walking, I'll listen so that I can still consume that information. And it's knowing that, just that word that you can read, and it will light you up. And when you share with someone, it might be just a particular passage that could be where they find what their purpose is, where we started this whole conversation.
So well said. So, one of the things I do when I'm a visiting professor at an academic medical institution, and you get to meet the faculty, and normally they invite you for 2.5 days. The last time I was invited, University of Washington, Seattle, before COVID, a named professorship, somebody had endowed an annual professorship, and they said, would you be the inaugural speaker? And I said, I'm honored, but I have a request. And they said, hey, we're inviting you and you have a request. What's your request? So I said, instead of 2.5 days, can I come for 4 days or 5 days? I want to do more teaching, meet the interns, the residents, the students, give talks, morbidity and mortality conference, grand rounds, CPC, etc., etc. So they loved it. And of course, you meet with the faculty in my particular discipline, gastroenterology and hepatology. And with the junior faculty, I would always ask the question, have you written a book yet? And most of the time, the answer is no. I said, are you passionate about something? And most of the time, the answer is yes. I said, you have a book in you, at least one. Yeah. Have you given a TEDx talk? No. Are you passionate about something? Yes, you can give a TEDx talk. And there are books about how to give a good TED talk. So I come back, and 10 months later, I get an email from 2 of the faculty, University of Washington in Seattle. Dr. Chopra, you may remember you mentioned, have you written a book? And you encouraged me to write a book. I've written a book. And I tell them I have a literary agent in New York, a brilliant young lady, and I'll see if she can help you get a publisher. But you can find a publisher in Seattle, or you can self-publish these days. One of them, Pearl, was from the country Cyprus, a brilliant young man, went on a scholarship to Oxford, and then is working at the Veterans Administration Medical Center in Seattle. And he basically wrote a narrative and stories from 20 of his patients and their life stories, whether it was the war, at home, disability, mental anguish, whatever. But I couldn't put the book down.
Yeah.
Riveting, so gripping. So, you just plant the seed and you have no idea what happens. Like you said, read a book and one passage will resonate and it can transform your life.
And you don't know, if you start talking to someone about a book, how many times do we share a conversation about something we've read? And that can become the start of a fantastic friendship that can last a lifetime. Sure. And it starts from just the love of a single word or a single passage, and then you see those synchronicities, the destinies, as we spoke about, all these things, and that's why people come together. And this is why I love that bit. And I must admit, my library just gets bigger every time I interview someone. I'm adding more and more books. If I haven't already got them in my library, I'm adding to it, because it's fantastic.
It is
It really, and I've just seen the time. I am going to have to let you go. It has been such a pleasure. I will be reaching out to you for us to cover some of the other questions, but just to get to know all the wisdom you share.
Oh, you're so
it's
kind.
phenomenal.
I'd be happy and honored to come back. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And to all the listeners, make sure you subscribe to the podcast, because then as soon as each episode goes up, you know that it's up there. So once we interview Sanjiv again, you'll know where the follow-up interview is. So thank you.
All the best. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Pearls of Wisdom podcast. We hope you have enjoyed the content shared. Please share with others who would like to enjoy these interviews and discussions. If you would like to support the podcast, please follow the link in the episode description. If you want to be a guest on the show, reach out and let's discuss next steps. Until the next time, enjoy your listening.